Welcome to Isle Royale National Park. We are backpacking-ish. We'll explain that here in a minute. Camping, essentially, for 2 nights. We've got some really nice hikes, I think, lined up. But I got to tell you, you may have noticed on the way in that the time we left dock looked like 2 completely different times of day. And that's because we broke the boat. Well, we didn't specifically break the boat. Sure. But the Voyager 2 decided it didn't want a rudder, and that the rudder really wanted to make out with one of the propellers. There was a chitty chitty bang bang, and it limped its way back to dock, and we didn't get here till late. So the big epic hike that we were going to do today, we're not. We're just going to have a nice evening hike. I think it's going to be around, what was it, 4?
5-ish.
4 or 5-ish? I don't know. We'll tell you here in a minute. What is the name of the hike?
Grace Creek Overlook.
Grace Creek Overlook. Here we go.
The first thing we needed to do after getting off the boat was secure a campsite and set up our tent. While all sites at Washington Creek Campground are first come first serve, it was the standing water and mud from the previous night's major rainfall that posed the biggest challenge to finding a site. We lucked out with a dry area that had great views across Washington Creek. After a quick dinner, we headed out on the Grace Creek Overlook hike, a common selection among day visitors to Isle Royale National Park. The island is renowned for its rugged natural beauty and diverse ecosystems, making it a perfect destination for those seeking solitude and pristine nature. There are no cars or roads to use them, so all exploration must be made by foot or boat. The park is home to an array of wildlife, including large populations of both moose and wolves. This was made evident on our return to camp as a young cow moose grazed the shallow water on one side of camp, while another stayed in the woods on the other side.
Last night's hike was absolutely lovely, and as long as we kept moving, we were able to stay mostly mosquito and bug free. There were a few wet and grassy areas that you would expect where they swarmed pretty heavily. I'm going to get one right now off of me. Yeah, but it was very nice and to be expected in the area. Got back to camp. Camp was nice. We got to watch a cow and a calf moose work down the river. That was really nice. Just as we went to bed, we also heard some footsteps again from another moose. Come to find out this morning, that was a bull. Speaking of last night, it did get a little cooler than we had anticipated. And the temperature ranges here, when you look at the forecast, it will say near the coast or inland.
Yes.
It's tough to know exactly what you're going to get. It's a significant swing between those two different things.
10-15 degrees.
Yeah, and we could have used a little bit warmer gear than what we were set up last night. But good news, our neighbors that had one of the shelters, they left this morning. So we left, the campsite was great. We left, and we're now in a shelter. Not only will that make it a little bit warmer, but when we get back to camp, we've got some screens and a little bit of block from the mosquitoes when you stop. Speaking of those mosquitoes, so far we're tackling them okay. We haven't figured out the secret sauce on which to use, the DEET, the picaridin,
or
the
lemongrass.
The lemongrass. I don't know. We'll tell you what we think was the best. The Thermocell has worked fantastic at camp, though. So if you come here, I would absolutely pack one of those. Anyway, the mosquitoes have found us now. It's time for us to get back on the trail and hiking. What are we doing here?
We are headed to Huginnin Cove.
Huginnin Cove should be about a 9.5-er, we're thinking, based on what we're looking at. Yeah, from camp. Anyway, join us in that right now.
They were great neighbors, but we were excited to take over their shelter. Luckily, the campsite we were switching to was very close, so it didn't take us long to make the move. As soon as we were done, we headed out for the day's hike. The Huginnin Cove and Minong Ridge Trail Loop offers breathtaking views over Lake Superior toward the borders of Canada once you are out of the deep woods. It also lets you experience the island's diverse terrain while observing the many tracks from wildlife that appear to regularly share the trail. You will notice we added head nets to our mosquito protection. This made the hiking tolerable, but there were moments where there was nothing that could be done to stop the onslaught. They landed stinger first and had no trouble penetrating multiple layers of clothing that had been treated with a plethora of deterrents. Later, we chatted with locals who said this year was the worst they have seen, as they too looked forward to the transition to flies, signaling a slight retreat of the little vampires. What bug spray works best? As far as we could tell, none of them made a difference.
Well, we ended the hike with right at 9.4 miles. That's not exact to what you would read, because that was to and from camp.
Yes.
Versus, I think, is the visitor center.
Yes, when to go.
Yeah, where they have the advertised mileage that would have been just a tick more than that.
Yep.
It was nice, but this is going to sound blasphemous to some. Hiking in the woods is hiking in the woods. Yes, these are very dense woods, but one of the things that we're drawn to in the desert areas or really mountainous regions where you get those big vista views.
Right.
Not to say this hasn't been absolutely lovely here. The vegetation's been nice, but it's just so thick, you're not really ever seeing any more than maybe 30, 40 feet to your left, right, front, and back.
Right.
In fact, it's so dense that we stumbled upon a small bull moose, and we didn't see it right off the trail. We're looking. It was about 20 feet away at most. It didn't mind us any.
No, he just stopped moving.
Yeah. Speaking of moose, holy moose. We know that we have seen 6 for sure. We've had 7 sightings.
Yep.
But we know that we've seen 6 individual
different moose.
Sometimes when they're in the woods, like here behind camp, it's tough to tell then when they're out on the water. You've seen some of the footage of all that. A difference in the footage throughout the hike. I wasn't able to capture quite as many of the intimate details of the landscape that we enjoy. Not to say they weren't present. There was a lot of wildflowers, interesting vegetation, tree shapes, and there was some nice views over lakes and streams. The main reason was the moment we stopped, we were just slaughtered by mosquitoes. They really weren't horrible as long as we kept moving. We could give them a swat. But it kept me from being able to stop even for just a moment before they would get us. And they're at a size and motivated enough that your clothing really isn't enough. We had long sleeve shirts on to try to help. It is not. They have gone through my waterproof cool pants. They have gone through our shirts. Our shoulders are just really eaten alive. Our love of whiskey has probably not made that any better. But what I would say is on a visit, if you are not comfortable with bugs, you are probably not going to be happy. There are just many. Now, that being said, there's some reprieves. Here at camp, we light our thermocell, and we're doing just fine. Yep. So, yeah. When we got back, there also wasn't much footage other than checking out a moose, which I'll show you here in a bit. We were just done. We haven't been sleeping well over several nights, and it just all kind of caught up to us. We were in bed before sunrise, and we got up a couple hours later than we normally have. So it's time for us to break down camp. We may check out I know we're going to check out the visitor center. I know we may do the nature hike as well, but we've got to break down and get out of our lovely home for the evening back there and catch the boat out of here. Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Ready. Let's
Ready.
go.
All right.
After dropping our stuff off near the boat, which had already arrived, we checked out the store and visitor center. Unfortunately, we ended up killing too much time to add a hike. Before we knew it, we were on the water, passing by the iconic Rock of Ages lighthouse and heading back to the mainland.
Well, the water was much smoother on the way back than on the way out. Not that the way out was bad, but it was still near glass for a good bit of the way back. The way back, we're here at Grand Portage, where Wilma has been waiting for us. We're ready to hit the road and head over to Voyagers.
Yes.
Wrapping up Isle Royale, it was a fine visit. Lots of bugs, we knew that.
Oh, yes.
The hiking is great.
Yeah.
It's one of the least visited national parks, but according to one of the rangers there, it's one of the most revisited national parks. I don't know that will be the case for us. It just didn't
click.
Yeah, we're happy to have visited. I would encourage you, especially if you're trying to hit all the national parks like we are, to make the visit, you know, but I don't know that it's one that we would revisit in our list like some others are. Anyway, hopefully you got something from the information, enjoyed the little bit of footage I was able to capture in between mosquito bites. We are on to Voyagers now.